Hi, my name is Jose Hernandez, and I had a near-death experience in the year 2000.
Luke Bennett was an electrician with a dark past and a broken heart until one drunken drive down Highway 17 changed everything. When his heart flatlined and his soul left his body, Luke was hurled into a terrifying journey beyond the veil. What he saw, a vivid life review, the torments of hell, and a stunning encounter with divine mercy, would leave him forever changed. This isn't just a near-death experience, it's a wake-up call for every soul still breathing. Hold on a minute, if you have not subscribed to our channel, do well to subscribe, like, comment, and share videos of this channel. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell.
My name is Luke Morales. I'm 38 now, but I can still remember what it felt like being a scared little boy growing up on the east side of Jacksonville. It wasn't the kind of place where kids played in clean yards or rode shiny bikes. Our streets were cracked like our families, full of noise, broken windows, and people trying to escape their own lives any way they could. My mum did her best. She worked 2 jobs, sometimes 3, but it was never enough. And then came Steve, my stepdad. He brought a steady paycheck for a while, but he also brought cheap beer, loud fists, and rage that boiled just under his skin. I never called him Dad. I called him Sir when I had to. Most nights I just tried to stay invisible. But when the shouting started, that didn't matter. I remember one night hiding in the closet, holding my little sister's hand. We heard the plates crash, my mum screaming, and his boots pounding down the hallway. He didn't care if we saw. In fact, sometimes I think he wanted us to. Like fear was something he needed us to feel just to make himself bigger. School wasn't any better. I was the quiet kid, the one with scuffed up shoes and hand-me-down shirts that didn't quite fit. I got picked on a lot, pushed in the halls, laughed at during lunch. I had a speech problem back then, and the other kids made sure I never forgot it. I tried not to cry in front of them, at home or at school. Showing pain felt dangerous. There was this one moment that still stings. 4th grade. The teacher asked everyone to say what they wanted to be when they grew up. Fireman, doctor, astronaut. Me, I said I didn't know. The truth was, I couldn't imagine growing up. I couldn't picture a future that looked any different than the mess I was living in. I didn't have dreams. I had survival, and underneath it all, there was this ache, a deep, gnawing need to feel safe somewhere, to belong to someone. I didn't know what love felt like, but I knew I didn't have it. Not real love, not the kind that made you believe you were worth something. That hunger stayed with me. It followed me like a shadow, and as I got older, I'd do anything to fill that hole, even if it meant becoming someone I didn't recognize. I was 15 when I got my first job. A neighbor down the street, Mr. Alvarez, ran a small electrical company and needed someone to carry tools and clean up job sites. I didn't know a thing about wiring houses, but I was quick to learn, and more than that, I just wanted to be around men who didn't yell at me or look right through me. The work was hard. Summer heat, dusty crawl spaces, sore knees and burned fingers. But for the first time in my life, I started to feel useful. I'd watch the older guys string wire through skeleton walls like it was second nature. They'd laugh, tell dirty jokes, and slap each other on the back, and slowly they let me in. Not as a kid, as one of them. That's where I met Darren and Ty, 2 of the crew's younger guys. They weren't much older than me, maybe 19 or 20, but they moved through the world like they owned it. Fast cars, big music, the kind of confidence I didn't understand but wanted desperately. On the job they were solid. After work, wild. They invited me out one Friday night, said they were hitting a house party. I'd never even been to a real party. But when Darren tossed me a beer and said, "You're rolling with us," I couldn't say no. That night lit something in me. It was loud. Bodies packed wall to wall, music shaking the floor. There were girls who looked at me, really looked at me. I drank until the nerves wore off, laughed louder than I ever had, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't the scared kid in the corner. I was Luke, one of the guys. We sped down back roads at midnight, blasting music, yelling out windows, and even though I knew deep down this wasn't exactly the crowd my mum would have prayed for, I didn't care. Being with them felt like I belonged to something, like I finally had brothers. The thing is, once you taste that kind of belonging, it's hard to let it go. I kept chasing it, weekend after weekend, work by day, party by night, And little by little, my life started to drift. But I didn't see the danger coming. I only knew it felt better than being invisible. By the time I hit 30, I was running my own small electrical crew. On paper, life looked okay. Decent money, a house on the edge of town, a wife, a kid. But the truth, I was running on fumes. The long hours started catching up with me, crawling under floors, lifting heavy gear every day. I messed up my back bad. At first it was just over-the-counter stuff, but soon I needed stronger pills just to get through a shift. The doctor gave me a bottle of something stronger, and I told myself it was temporary. But you know how that goes. One pill turned into 2, then 4. Then I started washing them down with beer at night, just to feel numb. Maria, my wife, tried to be patient. At the beginning she'd stay up for me, ask me how the day went, rub my shoulders, but I kept pushing her away. I'd come home late, eyes glassy, mind foggy. She'd try to talk, and I'd just grunt or turn on the TV. There were nights I wouldn't even make it to the bedroom, just pass out on the couch with an empty bottle still in my hand. We had a son, Leo. Little guy with dark eyes like Maria's. I used to think I'd be a better father than the man who raised me. But somewhere along the line I became that man. I'd come home and he'd be running toward me, full of stories from school, and all I'd say was, "Not now, buddy. Daddy's tired." Daddy's tired became my excuse for everything. Weekends turned into blackout parties with the guys. I'd lie to Maria, saying we were just watching the game, but I was out getting wasted, popping pills, flirting with disaster. I wasn't cheating, at least not in the way most people think, but I was definitely breaking something sacred. Sometimes I'd catch a look in Maria's eyes, this quiet sadness, like she was watching someone she loved slowly drown. And still I didn't stop. I told myself I was in control, that I'd cut back soon, that I was just stressed. But deep down I think I knew I was on a road that only went one way. It was a Saturday night when everything came crashing down, literally. I'd been out again with Darren and a couple of the guys. We'd hit a bar after work, then someone's garage to keep the night going. I don't even remember how many beers I had. A few pills too. Everything felt loose and floaty, like I was drifting outside of myself. That should have been the warning, but I got behind the wheel anyway. It was just past midnight. I was heading down Highway 17, winding through those curves like I had 100 times before. The road was slick from a light rain, and the yellow lines seemed to blur and stretch in the headlights. Music low, windows cracked, cool air slapping my face, trying to keep me awake. Then suddenly, this pressure hit my chest, like a fist squeezing my heart, sharp, crushing. I gasped and gripped the wheel, but my arms felt like they weighed 100 pounds. I couldn't breathe. I remember looking up and seeing the guardrail coming fast, then the world spun, glass, screeching metal, a jolt that rattled my teeth. Next thing I knew, I was hanging half sideways, upside down almost, in my seatbelt. Smoke was rising, horn blaring, pain everywhere, and yet somehow I felt far away from it all. Then it just went black. I didn't even know the EMTs had shown up until I saw the body. Yeah, my body. They were pulling me from the wreck, working fast, shouting things like "no pulse" and "get the paddles." I was floating just above the scene, looking down like it was a movie I didn't remember signing up for. One of the paramedics was pressing hard on my chest, sweat pouring off his forehead, but I wasn't in that body anymore. I didn't feel the pain, I didn't feel the cold, I felt nothing, and yet everything. Time didn't make sense. I was there and not there, present but distant, a watcher. That's when I realized I was dead. I hovered over the ambulance as it sped down the highway. Lights flashing, sirens wailing, tires humming fast against the wet road, but none of it made a sound to me. Everything felt muted, like I was underwater. The chaos, the urgency, it was all out there. I was somewhere else. Then I felt a pull, not like someone grabbing me, but more like something inside me was being drawn out. I didn't resist. I couldn't. It was like gravity had flipped and I was falling upward, and then I was in the tunnel. It wasn't what I'd expected, not pitch black like people say. It was grey, pale, soft, the kind of grey you'd see in the sky just before a storm. The air, or whatever it was, felt heavy but still, and the silence, I've never known silence like that. It wasn't peaceful, it was deep, thick, like even my thoughts had to whisper. As I floated forward, memories started rising around me. But not just memories. moments, every selfish thing I'd ever done, not big dramatic sins, but little ones. The way I ignored my mum's phone calls when I knew she was struggling, the time I mocked a guy at work just to fit in with the crew, all the lies I told girls just to get what I wanted, every time I knew better, but didn't care. I didn't just remember these moments, I felt them. From the other side, I felt my mum's sadness. I felt the shame that guy at work must have carried home. I felt the ache in the hearts of the women I treated like trash. It was all in me now, heavy, crushing. There was no one accusing me, no booming voice saying, "You're guilty." But I knew. I saw myself clearly, not just what I'd done, but who I'd become. I wasn't the victim. I wasn't the funny tough guy. I was a man who'd lived only for himself, a man who'd caused pain whether he meant to or not. And for the first time in my life, I couldn't hide from it. I was completely exposed, alone. Or at least, I thought I was, because just when the weight felt too much to bear, something changed. It started like a ripple, one small memory floating toward me like a wave, then another, and another, until they all came at once, wrapping around me like I was standing inside a giant living mural. I wasn't just remembering my life, I was reliving it, but not just from my own eyes, from theirs too. Every word I spoke, every choice I made, every person I touched, good or bad, it was all there, playing out in full color, like a movie I couldn't pause or fast forward. I felt it all. When I was 12 and shoved that smaller kid at the bus stop to get a laugh from the older boys, I felt his fear, his confusion, his shame. When I kissed my mum's forehead on her birthday and gave her flowers I bought with my first paycheck, I felt her pride, her deep aching hope that maybe her son would take a better path than she did. When I cheated on a girl who trusted me, I didn't just watch her cry, I felt her heartbreak break inside my chest, like a quiet scream I couldn't stop. Moment after moment, not just the big things, but the small ones too. The quick, cruel jokes, the times I looked away from someone in need, even the moments I thought were nothing, turns out they meant everything to someone else. I saw how my life was like a ripple in a pond, and my actions, they touched more people than I ever realized. There were some bright spots too, a few, helping that homeless man once with groceries when no one else would. The time I stayed late to help a coworker finish wiring a house so he wouldn't get fired. I felt his quiet relief, his unspoken gratitude. But they were rare, fleeting. Most of what I saw was pain, missed chances, wasted time. I wasn't being punished. No one was shouting or judging me. But standing inside the truth of my life, without excuses, without filters, was the most painful thing I've ever known. I kept thinking, if only I could go back, if only I could choose differently. But there was no going back. Just the raw, honest truth of what I'd done and who I had become. That's when I finally asked the question I had avoided my entire life. Who am I when no one's watching? And the silence that answered me said more than any words ever could. Just when I thought the life review was over, just when I thought maybe I could breathe again, everything around me shifted. The light dimmed, the warmth faded, and I was falling, not like a drop in space or gravity pulling me down. No, this fall felt spiritual, like my soul was being yanked into something darker than I'd ever imagined. Then came the heat, not like earthly fire. This was alive. It clawed at me, crawled over me, got inside me. My skin didn't burn, but something deeper did, something that couldn't be seen, but screamed louder than any pain I'd ever felt. And the smell, I can still remember it. Rot, despair, a sickness that lived in the air itself. I was surrounded, but not alone. There were others, shapes, souls, shadows trapped. Some shrieking, others whispering things I didn't want to hear. Curses, regrets, desperate cries for mercy that never came. And then, the presence. I don't even have the right words. It wasn't a monster with horns. It wasn't a red devil. It was worse. It was intelligent, cold, mocking. It knew me, knew my guilt, my secrets, my pride. It didn't need chains or flames to torment me. It used my own shame, my own thoughts. It spoke in a way that sounded like my voice, but twisted. You had chances. Over and over you ignored them. Look what you became. You wanted to belong. Welcome home. And that's when it hit me. This place, It wasn't punishment. It was the natural result of a life lived without love, without truth, without God. I had chosen this, with every selfish act, every time I pushed people away, every moment I laughed at things I should have wept over. I was walking toward this place, and now I was here. Time didn't exist there, but it felt endless. Every second stretched like an eternity. I felt hollow, forgotten, completely separated from anything good. I didn't scream, not right away. At first I just existed, empty, but slowly something in me cracked. A scream forced its way up from deep inside me, not from pain, but from despair. God, help me. It wasn't a prayer. It was my last breath, a dying ember of hope I didn't even know I still had. And in that moment, something impossible happened. The darkness paused, just for a moment, and something began to stir. The moment I cried out, everything around me trembled, not like an earthquake. It was deeper. The darkness recoiled, almost like it was afraid. That's when I saw it. A light. Small at first, like the flicker of a candle miles away, but it grew fast. It didn't shine like sunlight. It pierced. It cut through the thick blackness around me, like it didn't belong there. And it didn't. That light, pure, alive, full of love, was coming straight toward me, and the darkness, it started pulling back. Whatever held me there, whatever surrounded me, it couldn't stand in its presence. Then I saw him, not with my eyes, but with every part of me. There was no mistaking who he was. I didn't see a face like you'd see in a painting or movie, but I knew deep in my soul that this was Jesus. He didn't say anything at first. He didn't need to. He just looked at me, and in that look, everything I ever did, all my dirt, my shame, the people I hurt, the lies, the addictions, it was all laid bare. There was no hiding, no excuse-making. He saw it all. But here's the thing that broke me. He didn't turn away. He didn't flinch. He saw everything I was, and he still moved toward me. And when he reached me, I didn't feel judged. I felt safe. He reached out, not with hands like we have, but with himself, like his being wrapped around mine. And just like that, the fire, the screams, the torment, it was gone. All of it. I was being pulled out. It felt like I was rising, carried. And the farther I went with him, the more weight fell off me. The lies I believed, the hate I held, the pride I wore like armor, all of it crumbled, and I started weeping, not from fear, but from something I'd never felt before. Perfect love. Love that knew the worst about me but refused to leave me in it. As he pulled me higher, I felt the presence of others too, like witnesses, like family. I couldn't make out faces, but their joy wrapped around me. There was singing, not in English or any language I knew, but it made sense. It was beauty beyond words. For the first time in my life, I wasn't running. I wasn't hiding. I wasn't proving anything to anyone. I was just held. And as the light consumed everything else, I heard the first words he spoke. You were never too far. And then I woke up gasping, like I had been underwater for hours. Bright lights overhead, beeping machines, voices yelling. Someone pressed on my chest again, and I realized this wasn't the afterlife anymore. I was back. I was in a hospital. Tubes in my nose, IV in my arm, pain shooting through my ribs, but none of that mattered. I looked around, confused and stunned, like I had fallen from another planet. A nurse noticed me. She shouted something, and soon people rushed in. He's awake, someone said. He's back. But all I could do was cry, not soft tears, full, gut-wrenching sobs, the kind of crying that shakes your whole body. They thought I was in pain, but they didn't understand. I wasn't crying because of my body. I was crying because I had seen the truth. I remembered it all. The darkness, the life review, the fire. Jesus pulled me out. I remembered his voice, the feeling of his presence, that moment when I finally felt known and loved anyway, and now I was back in this broken world. One doctor asked, "Do you remember what happened?" I just nodded. But there was no way to explain to them what I had just seen, not yet. That night they left me alone. It was quiet, except for the machines humming next to me, and I just stared at the ceiling. Why me? Why would he pull me out? Why would he come for me when I didn't deserve it? I hadn't done a single good thing to earn that kind of mercy. I remembered the words he spoke. You were never too far. That stuck to me like glue. I had lived so much of my life thinking I was too far gone, too messed up to be wanted, but now I knew he had always been close. I was the one running. I didn't sleep that night. I just laid there, tears drying on my face, replaying everything. All I knew was, I couldn't go back to who I was. I had to find out more about the one who rescued me. When I got out of the hospital, I wasn't the same. Physically, I was weak, bruised ribs, a torn shoulder, and the scars from the crash. But inside, something had cracked wide open. I had questions I couldn't shake, and this time, I actually wanted answers. I started where most people wouldn't expect, Google. I typed in near-death experience and spent hours reading stories. Some sounded like mine, some didn't. But the ones that talked about Jesus, those made my chest burn. Not in a bad way, in a way I couldn't explain. I didn't have a Bible, I had never owned one. But I remembered my grandma used to read hers every morning before she died. So I found an old one at a second-hand store, dusty, with someone else's notes in the margins. I didn't know where to start, so I began with the red letters, the words of Jesus, and those words, man, they were alive. He talked about lost sheep, prodigal sons, forgiveness that didn't make sense. He described people like me, not the polished ones in church suits, but the broken, the addicted, the ones hiding behind pain and pride. I read about the thief on the cross and thought, that's me. I started praying, not with fancy words, just honestly. I'd sit in my room and talk out loud, God, if you're real, and if that was really you, I want to know you, and things began to shift. One night, I found a church live stream online. It wasn't big or flashy, just a man teaching out of the book of John. But he said something that stopped me cold. God's love isn't based on your performance, it's based on his character. I sat there, staring at the screen, thinking, so maybe I don't have to earn this. I kept going, bit by bit, scripture, sermons, writing my thoughts, crying some nights, repenting others. The more I searched, the more I realized I wasn't just chasing answers. I was being drawn, pursued. It wasn't about religion. It wasn't about rules. It was about a person, the same person who had pulled me out of hell. His name was Jesus, and he wasn't done with me yet. It's been 3 years since that night on Highway 17. 3 years since my heart stopped and my life began. I wish I could say everything turned around overnight, but it didn't. The road back was hard. I had to rebuild from the ground up, my body, my habits, my way of thinking. But something was different this time. I wasn't doing it alone. I ended up calling that small church I had found online, told the pastor my story. He didn't flinch, he just listened. Then he said, come by Sunday, we'd love to meet you. And I did. Walked in wearing jeans and a busted old hoodie, sat in the back pew. People greeted me anyway, smile at me, like I mattered. It was strange at first, foreign, but comforting. I joined a small group, guys who met on Thursdays to talk about scripture and real life. No one tried to fix me. They just shared their own stories, their own messes, and how Jesus met them there. That was huge for me. I didn't feel like a project. I felt like a brother. Over time, I began to serve, first just setting up chairs, then helping out with the youth. It blew my mind how God used my past, even the ugly parts, to reach someone else. Teenagers would ask me questions about hell, about regrets, about whether God could really love someone like them. And I could look them in the eye and say, yes, he can, he already does, I've seen it. My relationship with my stepdad is still distant. Some wounds take time, but I've been able to forgive him, not because he deserved it, but because Jesus forgave me first. And that freedom, it's real. It's not just a religious word, it's the unshackling of a soul. I work full-time now doing electrical work, the same trade I learnt as a teenager. But now I do it with integrity. I even run my own little side business. God provided more than I ever imagined. Not just work, but peace. I still have moments, flashbacks, memories I wish I could erase. But I don't let them rule me anymore. They remind me of where I came from and who saved me. I know not everyone believes in heaven or hell, or even in God. But I can't unknow what I saw. I can't unfeel what I lived through. The life review, the fire, the mercy. It wasn't a dream. It wasn't chemicals in my brain. It was real, and if you're reading this, maybe it's because you're being called to. Maybe you're standing where I once stood, hurting, searching, unsure. I want to tell you the same thing I wish someone had told me. Jesus is not far off. He's not waiting for you to get it all right. He's already reaching. Right now. He's the only reason I'm here. The only reason I have hope. And if he could rescue someone like me, he can absolutely rescue you. Just say yes.